Welcome everyone to the ELCivics Network Meeting for California for May 2023. My name is Lori Howard. I'm the CASAS ELCivics Specialist and Program Specialist Coordinator. Glad to have you with us today. Please type your name and agency into the chat so we will know you've attended. And after the meeting, if you haven't already, please register at caadultedtraining.org. And if you're not receiving my reminders, I think I sent it out on Monday. If you didn't receive a reminder for this meeting on Monday, but you'd like to receive them in the future, just email me at lbhoward@casas.org and I'll put you on the list for future meeting notices and other things relevant to ELCivics. So we're recording the meeting, and if you have any colleagues who weren't able to attend today, they can find the recording on our ELCivics support channel in a day or two, and I will be sending it to all of the people on my ELCivics network list. So you'll be receiving the recording and the slides. Let's go over our agenda. We're having a brief CDE review or update. We're going to talk about civic participation, IELCE, and we have with us today two members of our technology support team. Oh, I didn't add Luke here. Luke Philly is here with us too. His name is on a different slide. So we have Martha and Luke with us to help you in learning to make sure that you're entering things into TOPS Pro Enterprise correctly and that you're getting all the payment points that you have earned, but that you're actually getting them, which is good. And then Portia LaFerla is going to talk about citizenship preparation. And then we have with us today also Devin Werbel, who's faculty at LA Community College. She's going to talk about her IET IELCE program at at West LA College. Is there anything else that we should add to this agenda? Remember, you can always send me things, and if you would like to give a presentation about a program that you have at your school, we would love to have you do that. So please let me know. So we're going to start with our CDE update, and Portia LaFerla is going to talk to you about something that came up at the statewide meeting that relates to all of our programs, but especially ELCivics. Thank you, Portia.
Thank you, Lori. So Dr. Zachary informed the field at the May WIOA2 network meeting, state network meeting, that California received an additional 4.11% in its federal grant. So the CDE increased all of the payment points by 4.11%. And this year, because payment points were very low, agencies are still recovering from COVID, they are going to combine payment points for everything except ASE for 2021 and 21-22. And then there is also going to be a little bit of extra money that will be added in trying to bring agencies up to as near as possible to 70% of their previous grant award. So if you're very much below that 75%, you probably won't make it to 70%, but the CDE is endeavoring to get you closer. And then if there's carryover money, they will probably do another round of funding and again try to get agencies closer to that 70%. And then on this slide is the value at which each of the payment points are going to be paid out. And this does include $21 for positive employment and earnings outcomes. That means that the students got a job either through survey response or through the data match, or maybe it's just the data match. But then also the exit reporting. So anybody who replied to the survey or supplied a social security number for the data match, agencies will receive $100. So that's a pretty good incentive for getting those survey responses in. Okay, anybody have questions about that information? That's about as much as I know.
Okay, and I saw that there's a CDE consultant with us, Ayana Mickey. If you would like to contribute, you'd be welcome to, but you don't need to. But thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And I just wanted to say, I wasn't at the meeting, but I just wanted to point out to you the civic participation and IELCE rate is 104. And remember, we used to call this the $1 sign and the $2 sign, but now the CDE has decided that they're going to get paid the same. And the reason is, my understanding is that they want to encourage and support agencies who are doing IELCE and IET together, so that they're co-teaching or alternating teaching, but that students who are taking both the English support courses that help them succeed in training are going to earn much more. If the students are in an IELCE class but aren't enrolled in training, then they'll be getting the same as the 231 civic participation. So that's as an incentive to have you work with your students to enroll them in training. And that's the whole purpose of the IELCE money, and the money for those EL Civics co-ops, the IELCE co-ops, was to encourage students to do training. Anything else, Portia, that you want to add?
Angela has a question. She's asking, is this per student? Angela, are you referring to the employment and earnings payment?
You can unmute, Angela, if you want to answer.
If that's your question, yes, it's per student.
And so are these rates here, the 104, it's per payment point. So as a student passes a co-op and earns a payment point, this is the amount the school gets when the student passes the co-op. So either $104 per passage of a co-op assessment, or for students who are concurrently enrolled in IELCE and IET, $355.
Great. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that.
Sure. So again, incentive for this co-enrollment. Okay, great. Let's move on. Thank you so much, Portia, for talking about that. So now let's talk a little bit about more civic participation in IELCE. And it has come to our attention that some agencies, as we were going, especially through the IELCE reports, we realized that some agencies were not earning the payment points they were actually due, because they weren't reporting them correctly. That's my understanding. Margaret, did you want to, Margaret brought this to our attention. Did you want to say anything more about that? If not, just so we invite.
Not really. That
Okay.
was it.
That was it. Great.
Yeah,
So-
we've just noticed that. So it's good to remind people to check with their TE people.
So
their
we
data
invited
managers.
Martha Perez and Luke Philly, our CASAS tech support team members, to talk to us about using TOPS for Enterprise for California EL Civics, and they'll show you how to report your past assessment. So I'm going to stop sharing here and allow Martha to share. And thank you, Martha and Luke, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us. All right, so we're going to talk about first selecting the EL Civics funding sources, and then how to code correctly those classes for you to earn those payment points. So everybody can see my screen, right?
Yes,
can
we
see-
see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, it's to enter the correct funding sources for your agency. And for that, you would need to log into TOPS Pro Enterprise and open the agency's information. So you just go to organization agencies and double click on your agency's name, so you can open the entire information screen, the main information page for TOPS Pro Enterprise. Then you would just click on program years from the navigator bar on your left, and you would see these funding sources. Those check marks are empty, so you can just go ahead and populate the ones that apply to your grant, the ones that you have received from the grant. Once you have entered the necessary check marks, then you can go ahead and click save. And now you would be ready for you to add any focus area for all your classes. So now let's go ahead and move on to creating EL Civics classes and designate the appropriate focus areas for them. Some agencies use like an attendance system that you can just create those classes in there and then go ahead and import them into TOPS Pro Enterprise. So we're not going to really talk about the import-export process, but For those agencies that don't have an attendance system, then you can manually create them, and you can just go to organization, classes, and then click definitions, because the definition is what needs to be created first for you in order to then create an instance. So it's more of like a shell, like the class shell. It's like the definition where you enter the site where you want the class to be held on, and then the class ID number, as well as a class description as the minimum requirements for you to save the record. You are always welcome to enter anything else like course code or extended ID, but that's not really necessary if you don't want to provide that, or if you don't have that information, then you can just go ahead and save the record like that. So once you have saved the record or the class definition, then the menu on their left-hand side, which is called the navigator in TE, will change, and that will allow you to enter a class instance. For example, from the navigator, you would just click on class instances and then click the new button, which I'm going to show you in the next slide. So I'm more of like a visual person. So these are just the instructions, but these instructions are going to be provided to you, so you can go ahead and read them out and follow them. It's pretty much basically here, enter the program year that you are selecting, which is the current. And once you do that, the entry or class start date and class end date will automatically populate from the beginning to the end of the program year. You can just simply adjust those dates in here and just go ahead and check the instructional program should be marked as ESL. And then you can definitely select, the funding source under the focus area, depending on what classes you are setting up. For example, if you're setting up classes that have like regular ESL classes that have co-ops, if they're 231, you can just select the 231 funding source for civic participation, or 231 citizenship preparation, depending on the type of class it is. For 243, these are the IELCE classes, the plain ESL IELCE classes can also be chosen just a 243. Again, the program should be ESL, and the focus area 243 for those that have the integrated ELC Civics education in them. Now, everything okay until here, right? IELCE classes, but no integrated education and training. ESL, ELL is the instructional program to select, and then the 243 ELC Civics education for focus area. Now, when it comes to integrated education and training classes, for these particular classes, you would need to mark the integrated education and training under the special programs, so these get counted with the IET. Okay. Now, the 243, the class designations that we have here, these employ, like these classes that do employ the integrated education and training, we have 3 teaching models specifically for IET. The co-teaching or IBEST, the alternate teaching model, collaboration with outside organizations. And we're going to go over a little bit about these 3 different IET models, okay? So for integrated education and training arrangements, you would be using the co-training model. For example, if you have a class where you have the 2 teachers in there, where one teacher teaches the ESL part and the other teacher teaches the technical or the integrated education and training part, then you would code this class, or we would call it the co-teaching IBEST, and then you would code your class with the instructional program of ESL. You would also check the instructional program of CTE, or career and technical education, and also check the integrated education and training under special programs. And this 243 is the focus area that corresponds to these particular classes. Like anything that has IELCE, it should be the 243 focus area. Then we have the alternating model with a local agency CTE. So whenever there's a student that goes to the ESL class at your agency, but also goes into a different class that has the integrated education and training, then here's where you would code your classes for ESL. In the instructional program would be ESL only. The special program should be checked for integrated education and training, and the focus area should be 243. And now here you see how the box is highlighted in green, which is a different color. That's why we coded this in green, this little text here. It says create a separate TE class for CTE class. So in another TE class, you would just check the career and technical education along with integrated education and training and integrated ELC Civics education, and then enroll your same amount of students into the other class, or just those students who have this particular class. Maybe not everybody has it, so only you would enroll the students that have that additional training in there. And then we have the IELCE with mixed group of students. In this particular case, you would select the instructional program as ESL and the 243 integrated education, the 243 focus area. The program, the special program, you would just leave it blank, at the class level, and then mark IET, the integrated education and training, that would be marked separately for each student in workforce training. So there might be some students that do it, some students that do not. And in that particular case, again, you would create a separate class in TE for those CTE classes and enroll the same students that do the CTE training. And our last teaching model here would be the collaboration with an outside agency. Sometimes some students go outside of, they take the ESL class in your local agency, and then they go outside of the agency and they go do some training, or they do some work or training in a outside agency, like I don't know, like a car, I don't know, any workshop or any type of car shops or something. They would just go outside, and this is like what we call a collaboration with an outside agency. So for this would be using the IET alternate model, and you would code your class with ESL as an instructional program. A special program would be IET, and the focus area would be 243. Now, in this individual student, in the class notes, you can definitely enter a note to refer in that student is going to a workforce preparation at an outside local agency, so they can get counted for the CTE and IET, and that would count towards the student points. So I have Luke, who has a little bit more information on this.
Okay, so there is one more way to trigger the IET. And you'll see on the slide, there's something called workplace ed. So like Martha was saying, if you do have collaboration, maybe they're going to a auto repair and they're actually going there and they're doing training to get a job, or maybe your agency has something where they're doing instructional or something else to get a job after, it might fall under there. But what we've noticed occasionally is when you're running your payment points, or when running the detail stuff, you'll notice you have like a student marked as IET, and you're looking at your class and like, hey, nothing's marked as IET. Hey, they didn't mark IET under the student records. Like, we can't figure out what's going on. Another thing to double check, especially if you're using like paper forms and they might accidentally mark it or just kind of fill things in, they can mark that workplace ed. So if you're noticing you might have some extra ones that maybe they're not supposed to be in that class, but you can't figure it out, you can always go, records, students' records, and just kind of filter specifically for that workplace ed. Like if you don't have that, it's not in your program, you didn't apply, it's not approved, all that. And that might be where that problem's arising from. So that's something you might want to kind of check in. That is essentially unchecked if it's too much, or, you can check it if that's where you're going to fall under.
Right, thank you. And just as a reminder for those IET students, that they should also be enrolled in CTE and a workforce prep. So properly defining those courses in TE so that program specialists and CTE consultants can see all three components at work. We'd also recommend running the payment points summary as well as the payment points monitor report periodically, but mostly towards the end of the year when you have entered all your co-aps and, just making sure that students don't accidentally get into the wrong categories. So that's it from our side.
Great, Martha and Luke, thank you so very much. I just have a question and then I'm going to call for questions. Can you go back to slide 13? I just wanted to verify something. So on slide 13, you have the green check where it's green and you say create separate TE class instance for CTE. You're also checking CTE for the IELCE class, but then you are also making a new class instance for the CTE. So you're checking it here and making a new class. Is that correct?
That is correct. You should create an alternate class to mark the CTE portion of that. And that's the only one that it's marked in green. So we color coded these in purpose. So they can just create another class and just mark that as CTE so they can cover that technical part of it because they've already coded the integrated education and training with the ESL class along with the 243 focus area.
So for the IELCE course, they would not check CTE then, is that correct? They would wait and do another instance report for the CTE class.
Correct.
I got
That
it.
is correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Thank
Right.
you. Does
So-
anybody else have any questions?
So just to follow, it would be the exact same, just like if you have a 231 funding, you would create a specific class for the 231 and make sure you have like another class for the 243. It'd be the exact same. All of this, all the triggers and all that follows the ESL IET side as far as the payment points. The other class is just there to kind of verify, but as far as payment points and what triggers it, it's in the red.
Right. And I know many of you in the audience are not data people, but we wanted to show this to you because you should be aware, just so you can check. And if you're in a situation where you're not receiving, your agency is not receiving the payment points you expect, then you have an idea here about what should be happening. Any questions? Feel free to put them in a chat or to unmute yourself or raise your hand and unmute yourself if you would.
Okay, I guess everything is very clear.
Okay, very
I'll go ahead
clear.
and stop my share. Thank you so much, Lori, for having us.
Thank you, Martha and Luke, for joining us. I appreciate it. And thank you, Margaret, for suggesting it because it's very important to know this. And I like having the refresher as well.
Yeah, thanks for the review. It's good.
It's really good. So it's important for you to know how this has to happen. And I just want to point out too that remember we've talked before, but in the ELC, the Civic Participation IELCE FAQs that are on the CASAS website, one of the FAQs talks about designating part of your class as 231 and part of it as 243. So you can be, in a 3-hour class, you could designate some of the hours for one funding and some of the hours for another. And using the system that Martha and Luke just mentioned to you. So it's really important for you to know that so that you get all the payment points that you deserve, or your agency gets them, I should say. Great. Great. So continuing on with civic participation IELCE, we got this, I hope Elizabeth doesn't mind, the principal at Fairfield, Sassoon, shared with me something that her teacher, one of her teachers talked to her, and she was just praising her work with the co-ops. And we just want to remind you that the co-ops seem to be working really well. I hope they are for you as well. The thing I liked about what this teacher said was that her students said that they were surprised how much English and computer skills they learned in the class, and that one of the tasks was making a phone call, and that the student didn't think that they could ever make a phone call in English, but they were able to do that because of the performance-based work that the student and all the students did with their teacher related to the co-op. They were learning about talking to a landlord. So you are doing great work out there, and we just want to remind you. And if you have any comments about how co-ops have impacted your students or your teaching, we would love to hear that. So thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing, and thank you. I didn't get the name of the teacher, but thank you to that teacher who shared the success of her students. His or her students, I'm not sure. Okay, again, continuing with civic participation IELCE, we continue to have new co-ops this year. You guys have been busy, and thank you so much for wanting to revise the co-ops. So these are all the ones we've revised this year, 22-23, and the ones in green are the newest ones that happened, I think in April, I think. So I just wanted to point that out, that we have a new 50.4, a new 55.2, and a new 71.4. So check those out. Because if you're doing any of those co-ops, or your students in their needs assessment suggested that they would be interested in those civic objectives, there might be some new tasks that you might be interested in and that would serve the needs of your students. I just wanted to let you know that as every year on July 1st, all the documents on the ELC Civics webpage will be updated for the 23-24 program year, so you can count on any of the information. And we also suggest that you sort of review some of the information to figure out what it says, if there's any new things. And then if you remember, throughout the year, we mark in green anything that's new. So if you read the FAQs, and then during the year, you can just glance at the FAQs every once in a while, see if there's anything in green. I will be pointing out to you anything that changes, of course, in our meetings here. Also on July 1, co-ops are available to be selected for the program year 2023-24, and they are going to start showing up. But just to tell you that there are no major changes have been made this year, and any changes that have been made, if it's been a major change that you needed to work with, we notified you. If it's a minor change, if you go to the revisions to co-ops document, you'll see any changes that have been made. That will just roll over, and nothing major happened this year. And these are all links, just so you know. So if you want to go to the select co-op page, or if you want to find the revisions to co-op document, you can use the links here. Some information is out there, free digital assessments and instruction materials that was brought to our attention again about North Star. You may have heard of it already, but North Star Digital Literacy, it's a instruction and assessment tool that is free. And so if you want to help your students understand how to use a computer and the internet in daily life and employment and higher education, that's something you might do. It starts out assessing the needs of the students, and then offers instruction, and then assess them again to show what kind of progress they have made and what kind of skills they have. So it's really a great thing, and it's free to you, and I have put the link here. Is anybody using or has used North Star in the past and would like to mention anything about North Star? Okay, and so now, and I see from Margaret that we have 2 CD consultants with us, and we so appreciate you being here, and please chime in if you'd like to. And participants, if you have any questions for your CVE consultants, Catherine Peacock is here, and as well. Okay, let's move on to the next one. I have another thing to talk to you about entrepreneurship. We had an entrepreneurship work group a year or 2 ago. We have a new co-op that Marin wrote from Mount Diablo, and that's I linked it here. And COAB is putting on this Entrepreneurship Institute, and it's for educators and service providers. It's quite a commitment in terms of time. I think it's 2 sessions, 6 weeks each. I'm not sure how much time, but it will teach you how to work with your students in entrepreneurship, which we know is one of the things that many of our students want to work with. They want to start their own businesses. So I would suggest that you look into this and see if your agency would be willing to support you in learning how to work with entrepreneurship. We do have one new co-op that's related to entrepreneurship. We have a number of new language and literacy objectives, and we would love to work with you on developing some more co-ops in entrepreneurship, whichever tasks might be useful to your students. So take a look at 3.3, the new one, and then see if you'd like to update it or revise it in any way to meet the needs of your agencies. I just wanted to point out that for those of you who are 243 funded, your IELCE report was due on April 30th. The program specialists have been busy reviewing those reports, and you really should have been contacted by now with the results of your report. You would have received either an adequate with CDE review, or a not adequate rating for your agency. And if it was not adequate, then agencies were given targeted technical assistance to help improve your report. You may still be working on that report and working with your program specialist. And that's great. We would really like to have all the reports done, if at all possible, by June 9th. So if you're in the middle of doing it, I know it's a busy time of year, but we would really like you to submit your report so that your program specialist can do the final review, and hopefully you will be rated adequate.
Lori, if we haven't heard anything, should we contact our program specialist?
Yes. What agency are you?
This is Hayward.
Hayward. Okay. Yes, please.
Okay.
Please
I mean,
do
when did this go out? Recently?
Well, it's been going out. When did you submit your report?
Oh, we submitted before the April 30th date. That's why I didn't
Well,
hear
yes,
anything.
You should have definitely heard from your person. So
Okay.
why don't you contact your program specialist? Your program specialist might not be the reviewer, but they
Okay.
know who the reviewer is, and they can get the ball rolling.
Thanks, Lori.
If you need help with that, certainly email me. But if you would start with your program specialist,
Sure.
that would be great.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Lori,
Any-
this is Paige from Mount Diablo. Should we look for an email from our program specialist, or who would it be from?
Well, it depends on who was reviewing it. It's most likely your program specialist, but not some of your program specialists had like 40 agencies and needed to pass them off. So if you have a question about that,
Okay.
you can write to me, lbhoward@casas.org. I'm sorry. And is there anybody else who hasn't heard from your program specialist? Okay, no worries. And again, we can extend this deadline for those of you who haven't yet heard. But hopefully, again, we're in the process of making sure that this is all happening, and I'm glad to hear from you. That's why I put this slide here to tie up any loose ends. So great. Don't worry about it. You're fine. Contact me or your program specialist and just see where your report is. And it's possible also that, well, if the report would have been sent to the person who submitted it. So if you were not the person who submitted it, someone at your agency might have gotten all this information and not shared it with you. That's another possibility. But anyways, contact your program specialist or me, and I'll work with you on that. If you want to stay on after this meeting, and I can help you just today with it, I can look it up. Thanks for letting me know. Okay. I wanted to mention again, we talked about this last meeting, that ABE, ASC, and CTE learners and ESL students who are not part of our WIOA 2 could use the co-ops. And in fact, they're encouraged to do so. And we've written a couple of documents to help CAPE agencies increase their I3 outcomes, their immigrant integration indicator outcomes. And so this is a mandate from 2098. The legislature mandated that CAPE agencies could use co-ops to demonstrate outcomes. And so we'd love you to do that. And I'm going to be giving a presentation at the CASA Summer Institute that includes information about CAPE agencies. So love you to participate in that. Here is a chart about how ABE ESL students would and CTE students would correlate to our instructional levels that we use for co-ops. And again, there's a couple of documents here. Somehow I must not be using the right link. I had put links here, but I'll send you the correct one that has links to these documents, and you can find them on the Civics webpage. Yeah, and so because of that, we have added this new paragraph to describe this to all of the details of our co-op. So this is why I wanted to mention it again to you, because as you look at the co-ops this year, July 1, when you're selecting, you might notice this new information. And all it is doing is to notify people that not only ESL students, but CAPE agency students, AB, ASE, and CTE students can utilize the co-ops and are encouraged to do so. So just wanted to point out that you might be seeing this. Okay, and I'm not going to talk about CASA steps, but this was here from last year. I'm going to leave this in the slides so that you can be aware that we have a new test for ESL students that we hope is coming out at the end of this year. We don't know yet when it's coming out, but we want you to be aware of this. So I'm just going to skip through these slides. We talked about it last time. And this also. Okay, just pointing out our EL Civics Exchange is growing. We have more active materials than we've had, and so we're growing, and we hope that those of you who are WIOA agencies that you will think about making your materials accessible and submitting them to the EL Civics Exchange. Any questions about IELCE or civic participation? So Sarah asks, when is approval out? Does Margaret or Portia or anyone else, have you heard anything? I think we're not expecting it certainly till October, but probably longer. Oh, Sarah says she went to a meeting that made it seem imminent. I don't know who mentioned that to you, Margaret or Portia. Have you heard anything about the date?
All we hear is soon.
Yes, and the truth is that we never know. You know, this is done by Octave, and they don't tell us when they're going to do it. We submitted, I think, last October, and so we know it takes at least a year. It probably will not be until after October, and we never know when it's going to be. It's up to the federal government and their approval system, and we don't know when that is. So we would love it to be soon, but we have no idea when it is because it's totally up to them, and they don't notify us.
And for the record, the math goals too have been approved, but they have to be announced on the Federal Register before they'll be available to the agencies.
Thank you, Portia. So yes, we are looking forward to this, and we just want to inform you of these things so that you know they're coming. And remember that STEPS is based on the College and Career Readiness Standards. So I know you've had a lot of notice of this, at least 4 or 5 years, that you should be incorporating the College and Career Readiness Standards and the English Language Proficiency Standards into your instruction. So this is even more impetus for you to make sure that that is the case so that your students will be prepared to do well on these assessments.
And Sarah, we just don't know. I think many of us are hoping that they'll be ready for the new year, but it's totally up to the feds as to when they approve that.
And
okay, but you're also saying they approve it and then it has to be in the Federal Register. So the chances that this, because I mean, the meeting I went to, I guess it was a network meeting. It was like, okay, you're going to start them if you can. And we actually talked about it a little bit, but at this point, it's like, this is way too fuzzy for an agency to turn its ship, especially over a summer. I mean, that's just not, that's not feasible.
It won't be, it certainly will not be available for September. I mean,
okay, yeah, so that was what was implied at that meeting, and that's puzzling. I'm glad that's probably not possible.
Again, we never know, but we're very late in the year now at this point. So it's very unlikely that it would be available for September, perhaps for January, but even that might be iffy. So
right, and the truth is, once you start, once you give your pre-test or you proxy over your test from the previous year, then you're kind of committed for that grant year, right? You're committed for, once we start in September, we're committed to life and work until the next summer, because switching midstream would be, it would cost us money, right?
Right. So that makes sense. I don't want to speak out of turn, but that would make sense to me. Unless we hear,
Whoever just said, once I have a paired score, I can transition to the new series. But if I'm hoping for a gain and they haven't made a gain, I would want them to take the same series again to hope for a gain. So yes, paired scores are nice, gains are better. So I and I'm not going to be able to transition half my program. Oh, you have a paired score and a gain, so you switch to a new test, but you don't. I would drive us all into some kind of
yes.
service breakdown pretty quickly.
So
I
you
think
might want
that-
to wait until the end of June, just to see if you've heard by then. I don't think that's going to happen, but I guess it's possible. And then
I think that what some agencies are planning is a slow rollout. So for example, let's say that you start with life and work, maybe in January, these tests become available and new students who are entering the program might be put into steps so that the agency gets experience with it and the students can get a look at the test, the teachers get a look at what's happening. So, there could be the possibility of a slow rollout as opposed to starting a program all at once in July.
So you'll have to make those decisions, and I'm
Mhm.
sure, you'll be talking about that more at network meetings. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Lydia. So Lydia feels comfortable rolling it out with new students, and Sarah, perhaps you don't. And so, you just need to make those decisions for yourselves. The life and work will still be possible to use. And I don't know what the date, I think the date has been elongated, hasn't it?
Right now, they expire before the end of the next school year, but Jay said in the national TE meeting that the feds always extend to the end of the program year. So I don't think anybody needs to worry about that.
Right. So there's no problem with keeping with what you have. Thank you for this discussion.
I either need to change full tilt or I need to wait. I can't, it would be very hard for us to do something else.
Okay, so
Thanks.
you can make that decision. Okay, we're going to move on to Portia with citizenship preparation. Portia, thank you.
Thank you, Lori. So the right now, both certification and recertification are closed for the year. So you cannot enroll anybody in either of those trainings. But if you need people to be certified for the new year, certification will open in July, beginning of July, and recertification at the beginning of January. So there's plenty of time to certify for the new program year. And I just have a couple of slides bringing you some information that was generously provided by Jennifer Gagliardi. And she did a beautiful article for OTAN. And there's a link to that at the bottom, what's new at online civics education and citizenship prep on the OTAN website. And a couple of the things that she highlighted were this USCIS YouTube page. And they have multilingual presentations, video presentations for the naturalization process. And they're in many different languages. They're anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes long, and they cover the information that's here, filing the information, the interview, the oath, and they're very concise and clear and in students' native languages, and they have many languages. So that YouTube link is a link to that series of videos. Okay, and the next one, Lori. The other thing that they have are these 20 short how-to videos, and these are anywhere from 25 seconds to 20 minutes. And there are 20 of them. Here's a selection of the topics. So I like this one, send it to the right address, or make sure you sign your forms. So they're very important points. And again, as I said, some are very short, some are very long. And this is a link to where those 20 videos are. And the next one, Lori. They also have a 4-video series about naturalization and the interview test with these 4 topics. So these are links to those videos. And the last one, Lori. These are resources that Jennifer provided from links. There are a couple of discussion groups, 2 new ones, one on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and one on civics education and citizenship, which Jennifer moderates. And then they've also added resources to this page, enhancing access for refugees and new Americans webpage, and it includes information about integrated education and training. So not sure if these are useful to you or not, but it was a great article that Jennifer wrote, and all the links are here in case you'd like to delve further into the topics.
Great, thank you so much, Portia. Any questions for Portia about citizenship preparation? Okie doke, let's move on to our other information. So just wanting to remind you that we're coming very close to our CASA Summer Institute, June 12th or 15th. I hope you've already registered. I just wanted to point out there's a lot of EL Civics related presentations. I'm going to be doing California EL Civics Basics, which is going to talk not only about civic participation in IELCE, but also best practices for CAPE agencies. So if you're a CAPE agency and you want to start using COAPs, this would be a good presentation. Portia is going to do her basics on citizenship preparation. We have a number of agencies who are going to show their model for workforce preparation in healthcare. One of them is in healthcare, and then one of them is general. So if you want to get a little jolt of energy about your workforce training program, that would be good. We're also going to talk about the EL Civics Exchange for those of you who want more information. And if you haven't participated yet, you'll remember that OTAN and CAPE and CASAS collaborated together to write a social justice resource that's you can find on the CASAS website, and we're going to be doing a presentation on that at the CASAS Summer Institute as well, and then a number of other things listed here. So we hope you'll come, and some of them are hybrid if you can't attend in person. Many of them would be available through the internet. Also to tell you that we have the CASA Summer Institute California Consortium, which we do every year. Last year, the CDE took over and did a Shark Tank topic, which was very exciting and wonderful. They say that the new questions and brainstorming topics are coming soon so that you can prepare for this California Consortium. We hope you will. I assume those are coming out. Well, I don't know how they're coming out. Does anybody know? I don't know if there's going to be a June meeting, so probably people are going to get an email about these Shark Tank topics. Does anybody know?
You're going to get an email.
Pardon me?
You'll get an email about the topics.
Okay, we'll get an email about the topics. Yay. Okay. Okay, wonderful. So just want to mention to you that we have dates for EL Civics meetings coming up next year. I haven't yet put them on the website, but I'll do so by next week, so you can start registering if you want. And just to remind you, again, please type your name in the chat box and agency so I can keep track of your attendance. And if you haven't already registered for this meeting, you can do so through the end of the week. So we'd really appreciate it. Would help me out if you would register at this website. Now, any questions? Okay, let's move on to our great presenter for today, their Model IELCE IET program. We have Devin Werbel, who's faculty at LA Community College. I think her campus is West LA College, and she's going to tell us about home supportive services. So those of you who are interested in workforce training and healthcare related training, this is for you. I'm going to stop my share so that Devin can share and give us her presentation. Devin, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. And there we go.
You're welcome. Yes. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for having me. And you pronounced my name right, Lori. So it is a good day. I am Devin Werbel. I am from West LA College. We are in the LACCD. You may or may not know, but we are one of 9 campuses in the LACCD, and West LA College is one of the smaller campuses actually within our district. And so I will go ahead and share my screen here. Right, almost there. Can you see my screen? Is
Yes.
it in presenter mode yet, or still thinking? There
No,
we go.
there we're going. Yay, now it's there. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm here to share our program here. It is under the umbrella of the Healthcare Career Discovery. And so we have a number of courses that are packaged into certificates, both for ELLs, English language learners, that service our IET and IELCE program, and then for our native students of West LA College. So the one I'm going to share here today is our in-home supportive services for ELLs. And I'm going to do just a simple overview of our program structure. I'm going to share with you instructional practices, how we embed student supports and also faculty supports, the opportunities we've developed for faculty and staff professional development, how we schedule to ensure, the faculty have time to connect to one another and prep, and the students are also available. And then there are pathways within our division and also towards other divisions. I should have introduced myself. So at West LA College here, I am one of the faculty members within the IET program here at West LA College. And I also am the IET program coordinator. So I help do program orientation, outreach, support for all of the program structure you're going to see in a moment, and also curriculum support. I was actually listening really intently to this call because I'm excited about new co-ops. That's one of my roles as well, is to identify, take our student needs assessment survey, right, and aggregate that data to determine what co-ops our district is going to be able to, support or offer, and then provide those for my faculty. So that was exciting. So here is our simple program description, and I'm sure you probably already read it while I was chatting away. So it's really an intentional process with our students to have a cohort style of instruction. And we do this in a way of scheduling. We do this with regards to program orientation, support during the program and after. And the students are taking some classes simultaneously or concurrently, and then other classes that come a little bit later so as not to overwhelm students. So in our in-home supportive services, we have IHSS for ELLs, there are 4 classes, and this is in our college and career prep division. We have a combination of non-credit and some credit classes actually in our college and career prep, but predominantly we're a non-credit division. So we have 4 courses, and you're going to see those in a moment. And in our LACCD program, and I believe across the state of California, you're able to have a range of hours within non-credit classes. And so what we do is we create the schedule appropriately to ensure students are receiving the right amount of instruction, right, with the hours necessary. So you have here the IHSS or CTE training portion, which is a lecture and lab. Then we have our workplace skills, for professionalism, workplace ethics, safety, and also digital literacy. And then we have our vocational ESL program or course. And this is truly that's the class that I teach. And I contextualize that class for the students in the IHSS program. So, we've created single set learning objectives, my colleague and I, and every week that I have my VESSL students, I'm like reinforcing the terminology and the skills that they're learning in the IHSS class. I want to pause for a moment. Are there any questions? You're welcome to interrupt me if you're like, wait, what are you talking about? I'm happy to make this, more informal. So if there are any questions, you're more than welcome to type in the chat or unmute yourself.
If I see them, Devin, I will ask you the questions.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Oh, good. Thank you, Lydia. Nice. Awesome. I know there's so many acronyms in education. It's ridiculous. So, okay, so moving on. So here is a sample schedule of how we promote and create our schedule. So right now, almost done with the spring semester. Here is our spring 2023 IET schedule for IHSS. So and these classes, predominantly West LA College is, I would say for this population, nearly 99.9% online. So we have students coming from, San Bernardino online and all the way out in, Fillmore and Palmdale and all over the place to take our program, because truly it has, we just have a following with one of our instructors, and I'll speak about her in a moment. So Vocational Education 408 is our in-home supportive services class. And the lecture part of that class meets on Saturdays on Zoom from 9 to 10. And then right after that, we have scheduled same day, right after the lecture, the lab portion. Now that's tricky, right? You're like, well, you're online. How do you do lab? The instructor has figured out ways to be very creative with her instruction. And I can share a little bit of that in a moment when I talk about the before supports when we launch our program. So those are on Saturdays. My class is vocational ESL for IHSS. That's on Fridays, again, on Zoom synchronously. And I should be very specific. These 3 experiences for students are synchronous. So the only async classes you'll see are down here. And again, I meet with the students on Zoom, and we got really lucky. Our professional development coordinator here at West approved Paloma, our bilingual IHSS instructor, to be somewhat of a teacher liaison in my vessel class. And so she's able to get flex credit for her time with me in the class. So she'll join my Friday class. And just, again, we can kind of reinforce terminology and skills, do more role play, and do more literacy support if needed. So that's been a game changer, because in the past, we've had course embedded tutors that were bilingual, English, Spanish, but we are down tutors right now. And so that was our workaround. The other 2 classes from the, the workplace success classes, or soft skills, right? We call them, is the Blueprint for Workplace Success, which is async. And then our Voc Ed 97, which is the Blueprint for Customer Service. Started at after spring break. And this is also an asynchronous, no set day, no set time class. And this instructor is actually teaching this in a bilingual format and has created all of the content on her own. Pretty incredible. Okay, so why are we kind of successful? Why is it working? I truly believe it's the people that we have. Paloma in particular has a very big following in the world, in the consulate here in Los Angeles, and she's very active in the community. And so that's been really, really helpful, is just to have her strength and her voice. So prior to the cohort, Paloma and I do our outreach, and really what's been crucial is the success of our students, right? And so when our students tell their family members and their community about the opportunity to take these classes, online at no cost, at times that work for working families, their doors have opened for them. So prior to the cohort, we have been meeting, set aside meeting times to just share our syllabi, share the curriculum, look at the textbook, make sure that the free text that we have is accessible for students, and make sure that we kind of clarify just between us as faculty, right, the learning goals that we have and what those look like week to week. And we've gotten into a habit of just kind of checking in with one another on a Thursday before I teach, or Paloma will send me a note, here's what happened on Saturday. So it's really nice for us to stay in communication, and we can actually talk about students together, since we share those students as teachers in the cohort. We bring students into a student orientation about a week and a half before. And in that student orientation, we do a number of different things. First and foremost, we want to introduce them to Canvas because that's the learning management system that we use. And so we do a very thorough tutorial on, how to access Canvas, how to get into their student portal, everything that Canvas offers and what that looks like, how to navigate within each of their courses. And obviously we know that, every instructor is very different, right? As it relates to how they set up their Canvas shell. But I think what's really important is this idea of us as faculty being able to be in each other's shell. And that's really been helpful for us to make sure that we're all kind of speaking the same language, right? And we do our best to kind of set up our shells similarly. Of course, academic freedom, of course, we want to have our own personalities, right? But needless to say, I think it's important for us to be able to see what's happening in each other's classes.
Devin, one of the questions is how many students in a cohort?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes. So right now we have, I think we started with about 38 in our cohort and we're down about 10, I'd say. So that's a largish cohort for us. We like to aim somewhere between, 20 to 30. We do accept more because we know that sometimes life happens. Yes. And we're going to lose some students. So we cap it at 40. But we started at 38 and we're down to about 28. During that orientation as well, so we do the Canvas work, we make sure that students know, how do I get into Canvas? What does Canvas look like? What buttons do I click, right? And then we make sure that students are enrolled in all of the courses, right? Because that's confusing. Let me go back to that previous slide, right? So if you look at these classes, how many are there? So the Vocab 408, luckily, that's just one class, but it has a lecture lab component in the course outline and record, right? So that's one class. Then you have Vocab 411, that's class 2. Then you have Vocab 96, and then you have Vocab 97, right? And so those are 4 classes that the students need to enroll into in order for them to be in the entire cohort program to receive the certificate of achievement. I see a question for the in-home supportive services. Yes, so Paloma did work in a hospital. She was a CNA before she became an ESL teacher. So she does have like practical on-the-job knowledge and has worked in clinics before, actually on the East Coast.
So a couple of questions then here, Devin. So is the IHSS teacher, does she have her CTE credential is what I think is Thua is asking.
Oh, I don't know about that. That's a good question. That would be a question for my chair or my dean.
And I wonder, maybe in community college, you have a little bit different rules perhaps than adult education. So we should, probably look into that because she would have to have a master's degree, right, to teach at the community college?
So in non-credit, you need a bachelor's degree.
Oh, bachelor. Oh, really?
Yeah. So in non-credit, you need a bachelor's degree. In vocational education, since it's such a large discipline with a large number of different subjects underneath it, if it is something like an IHSS program, or if it's hospitality, or if it's automotive, or if it's culinary, in our system, the minimum qualifications are 6 years of experience in that field. And you need to get a letter that attests to that in order to be qualified.
So in your system, I would say that she is CTE certified. And so, but adult schools may have different systems. And so we need to, and districts might have different rules as well. So we might, each agency should check into that and also check with your CDE consultant. Thank you, Devin. Another question, how is this program funded?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are part funded by the FTES, the full-time equivalency that we receive from the non-credit enrollment. So some of that is funded by the college. My position as like a coordinator, so the instructional part is taken care of by our program 100 funds. And then the coordination part is funded by our WIOA funds, which is
Great.
phenomenal.
And then somebody asked, what are some of the topics covered in VOCED 408, which is the IHSS lab, I guess?
Yes, yes. So the VOCED 408, there's a number of things that are covered, everything from health and safety, working in your client's home, communication and professionalism with your client, bathing, grooming, wound care. So what did we just go over recently? Liability and making sure that you don't do anything that is outside of your job description. So for instance, we have some students who are working for an agency, right? And so the agency that they're working for as a home health aide will give them a very clear and distinct list of, responsibilities for that client that they're going to be taking care of. And so it's really important for the students to understand the term liability and to understand, to stay very objective in their reporting and documentation that they take when they're with their client. So those are some of the topics, but I can follow up with, a whole list of other topics that they learn. I hope that was helpful. Okay. So the enrollment support is really helpful. As you saw, those are a lot of classes. So we have an open Zoom link that is available, Monday through Friday, and it's also available on Saturdays. So our team supports the students in making sure that they're enrolled on time and that they can see their Canvas shell in their dashboard. Okay. So during the cohort, like what happens, right? A lot. So much happens. Sometimes I forget. So really, Andrea is doing our workplace professionalism piece. Really, these weekly check-ins are just part of what we do as professionals, as faculty. And it's just become our way to ensure that what Paloma is teaching in the IHSS class is being supported in my vessel class. And then also that the soft skills piece is contextualized for that career sector. So we all share each other's syllabi. If there's a topic or something that needs to be repeated or gone over, we talk about that and we share that. And so sometimes we will repeat information if needed, and that's really important. And I think the beautiful thing that it's the three of us right now is that we have such a good relationship, right? We've only been working together for a couple of years, but it's been really beneficial to have that faculty collaboration. The way we were able to I always get this question, like, how do you get and these are part-timers, right? Like we're part-time. So how do you get your part-timers to do that? We were able to, in our offer letter that goes out for our faculty, what we were able to do was add in 3 hours of extra for teaching in an IET cohort. So it's like, 1 hour, a little bit, 45 minutes here, 45 minutes there at their faculty rate. So it's kind of a nice rate to be able to receive some compensation for their time. But we all know we go above and beyond all the time. The other thing that we do during the cohort, something that I do, but I do get support from, is maintain class rosters. So we're always making sure that we know, which students have dropped. Are they in your class still? Are they in my class? Okay, if they did drop, let's reach out to them, make sure that we send them a message in Canvas. We have a WhatsApp group that was established by the students. And so that's a really good way for the community that has been really created to stay connected to one another, to motivate one another, and to keep one another coming and showing up. But sometimes, a student will say, listen, I just can't do it right now, but what about next semester? And so we always make sure that we have a list that shares the students who we're somewhere, maybe 2 or 3 weeks in the program or 2 months in. how we can bring them back into the program in a way that is intentional so they can complete their certificate. We're really lucky in our division. We have a full-time non-credit counselor and a part-time counselor. And we also have a small team of unclassified paid interns who will come in during the cohort during instructional time and do brief, short presentations on participating in our graduation, how to make sure that they make an appointment with the counselor so the counselor can petition for their certificate with admissions and records. And that is a timely, right, task that has to be done in advance so they can participate in graduation. The other counseling supports include obviously academic advisement. If someone is interested in kind of going to the next level, which we'll talk about in a moment, you know, moving from non-credit to credit, that's a really intentional conversation that our counselors have with them, with our team. And then lastly, the counseling is really closely connected, you know, in a physical sense to our career center. And we'll talk about some of those supports in a moment. As I mentioned, you know, in the past, we did have a bilingual course embedded tutor, which was awesome. And we're so sad that he moved on, but he's doing great things at JPL, at the Jet Propulsion Lab here. So you can't be mad at that. So he went on to do great things. We're still looking for a tutor for a fall cohort. But as I mentioned before, our professional development team here at West approved Paloma to come and be in my class as a course embedded faculty member and receive flex credit for her time spent in the class. Again, helping me reinforce those skills, right, in my class that she's doing in her Saturday class. Okay. After the cohort ends, so obviously we want to make sure that all the students have successfully completed, you know, each course within the certificate. In our non-credit classes, some of you may be familiar with this, right? We have, you know, satisfactory progress, pass, no pass, and many of our students, you know, absolutely pass. There's very slim places where you're gonna get a no pass, and we do everything that we can prior to that time, like before spring break, to do some real like intrusive academic and counseling support as well. And also I mentioned this with the counseling team, we have the grades reported in advance. And so to make sure that the counselors can create the certificate petition, send that over to A&R. It's a really slow lead time. So A&R will do it, it'll go to the district, and then finally the students will get their certificate. So I said, well, it'd be really nice to like give them something in that gap time. And so we print out some homemade certificates here in our office with their name and a seal and the signature of their faculty and our chair and dean, letting them know that they're going to get their official one, you know, in the mail from the district. I see a question here from Karen. When do the students take their CASAS tests and or co-op assessments? And I'll be honest, as soon as we can, right? So we have a team dedicated to CASAS in the beginning of the cohort. And then since I do co-op assessments, I help manage that. So we just did ours about a week ago in my class for Vessel. So yay, done. But we're on a very, you know, good schedule with that. Now, I use 37.3 this time, which is, can someone tell me? I forget something about, I remember the tasks. I can see them in my brain. Anybody? 37.3. Nobody knows.
37 is soft skills, which is perfect for this kind of thing.
Yes, thank you. Soft skills, but it's particular. There's a particular, anyway.
Yes, and you can make it whatever fits your, you know, it's just about communicating with customers, leadership, all of those things. And you can make the content of the tasks, whatever is good for your agency.
Right. Right. And what we've done in the LACCD, which is really cool, is some of the faculty who are, experts in ESL, that's where my degree is based from. We share our co-op curriculum and assessments on our Canvas Commons. So that's been really awesome. I really suggest like some area for that to exist. And I was really excited that some new co-ops are coming down as well. Okay. Wraparound services. So I kind of mentioned a few of these. So our student orientation is first and foremost, I'd say about a week and a half before the semester begins, the cohort begins. The other thing that I always ping the faculty if I'm not teaching is I always say, okay, time to send an announcement reminder in your Canvas shell or however you're going to be working with your student. Then we have our academic counselor visit throughout the term, and then our workforce center partner visits, as well as our career center. So anytime we get any leads from opportunities to get a job or job advancement, many of our students are actually working already in this sector. And so some of them, I would say maybe 75% of them are truly looking for like a career advancement boost. And so they come in with such rich knowledge about the actual field, which is another kind of peer mentorship that has been really successful in our cohort. And then lastly, right before our cohort ends, we have the department chair of health sciences or allied health here at West LA College on the credit side come and speak to our students, build their confidence and their motivation to think about next steps for them, right? Because I am of the mind frame that there are some of our non-credit students that are definitely ready for credit. They are ready, right? And so how can we help them on that journey to make that leap from non-credit to credit, because they get really comfortable in our nest. And so we want to be those mommy birds to support them and do that like warm handoff. And so the idea here for fall, actually, not fall, I'm sorry, for spring is to create, to repackage some of our classes with a credit offering. So we're thinking about, now this is just brainstorm, but I'm sharing it with you widely because I'm excited about it. Doing a credit medical terminology class, which they're already learning truly in IHSS. So that would be 3 units. Offering a non-credit math for allied health, like, putting the vegetables in the mac and cheese, right? Math could be kind of fearful for a student. So how do we package it in a way that breaks down the math skills into a very specific, concrete skill for them being in the allied health field, doing our ESL or vessel course, and then adding in something new as it relates to like soft skills, which is our 21st century employability skills. We're looking at empathy and or adaptability, because we think that those are 2 really important topics, not only for our culture and our society, but also for this particular field. So our on-campus partners, it definitely helps that I'm on the curriculum committee as our representative for our division. I write curriculum, I revise curriculum, I package our non-credit classes into certificates that are stackable, lots of career development and career prep certificates. So that is really helpful, and it helps us as a division connect with our credit colleagues and create that warm, collegiality between us. As I mentioned, the health sciences division has been a huge champion of our classes. The Career Center and Co-op Ed, that's our internship program. Since Andrea Rodriguez Blanco is one of our instructors for the soft skills piece, she's also, very luckily, the Career Center director. So she's really able to kind of bring in those contacts and connections with our workforce center partners, and paid and unpaid internships, seasonal jobs, etc. We have Fresh Success here on our campus. I'm less familiar with that, but during the orientation, we do make sure our students know about our Fresh Success. And from what I understand, this is the FDA's kind of repackaged CalFresh program. And then again, I mentioned tutoring. So although we don't have a course embedded tutor, our students, just being non-credit students, have access to tutoring, both online through our online tutoring support and also in person. Let's see. And that's it. Wow, I did it. I'm going to stop sharing.
Well, Devin,
Yeah.
unbelievably great
Oh, thank you.
presentation. And I just want to mention just some of the focus on the incredible things that you're doing that I think we have talked about in all of our trainings and presentations, that collaboration among instructors, the single set of learning objectives that are a requirement of our program, but also show how important it is for the students to have that collaboration. I was noticing that you have co-teaching, but in a way we don't usually see, which is in the ESL classroom instead of in the CTE classroom. So I hope you're listing yourself as co-teaching in that, or it wouldn't be crucial, but interestingly.
Okay.
And then most importantly, as we say, these programs cannot succeed without wraparound services, orientation of students, counseling, support, people coming into the classroom, especially in the community colleges. We know that registration and all of those things are really difficult for some of our students. And so all of that support of students helps them succeed, taking away barriers that might help them get a job, for example, or also help them integrate into credit courses. I love that idea that you're going to add in these credit courses, because that is the gateway to more education and training, which helps them improve their workplace jobs. So
Yeah.
incredible work, and also support of faculty, so that when they are doing these collaborations, they're getting paid, and that's really important as well. Just want to point out these couple of things. Any questions? We've got lots of great feedback. Fantastic, informative, a good model. Yes, a good model. And thank you for mentioning your co-op and how you do that. Any questions for Devin? And while you're thinking about that, I also want to say Devin's going to be at the CASA Summer Institute. She's one of our model programs in healthcare. So if any of your colleagues want to talk with her or hear her present along with Paloma at the CASA Summer Institute, I know they're not only going to be in one of the models workshops, but I think you're giving your own workshop, Devin, which is also great. And we're going to be inviting you to be on a focus group also, just so be aware. And Devin gave you her email address, and maybe if you wouldn't mind, Devin, before you send, they're asking for your slides. When you send me your slides, could you put your email address on there so that everybody has it, and they might reach out to you to ask a question or two, if you wouldn't mind. We so appreciate you being a model. I don't see any questions, just a lot of wonderful comments. Any last moments with Devin? And I so appreciate you taking the time, Devin, to participate in this way. That's so great. And we look forward to seeing you at the CASA Summer Institute.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the time.
Yes, and I'll send out Devin's slides, my slides, any other documents we've mentioned. They'll all go to the ELC Civics Network list. If you haven't yet, I'm going to take back the sharing. If you haven't yet got onto my ELC Civics Network list, if you would email me at lbhoward@casas.org. I'll put you on the list, and then I'll send you all the documents. Remember again that our next meeting will be, let's see, I think August 2nd. I will put that item for you to register next week. So feel free to register, and I'll be reminding you of that. I hope to see you at the CASA Summer Institute. And if you haven't already, please type your name and agency into the chat box and register for the training if you haven't already. I hope you have a great end of the school year. I look forward to working with you again in 2023-24. And those of you who wanted to talk to me about your IELCE report, I'm going to stop the recording, but just stay on the line and I will work with you if you'd like me to after this. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a great summer.